150mm gun. Its HE shells have 7 kilos of explosive filling and punch through more than 60mm of armor, meaning that they can effectively eliminate not only any tank of its rank, but even some higher tier vehicles in just one shot. Of course, there's a serious drawback to this firepower. Once you make a shot, you have to wait for almost half a minute to reload. Another interesting pick waiting for you at the very first rank is the multi-turreted Rogor, which comes equipped with a 37mm and a 70mm gun. And if you take a close look at its list of available ammunition, you'll be pleasantly surprised. There is a pretty decent heat round there, capable of penetrating 76mm of steel. Other tanks of this rank do not do anything extraordinary, so we move on to the second era. That's where you first start to see things that really make the Japanese fleet stand out. Namely, the extra powerful APHE rounds. No need to shoot 2 or 3 times. You can finish the fight with just one good hit. If that's your cup of tea, try using the Hor-Ni 3 or the Chi-Lu. They are the go-to vehicles for this playstyle at this rank. They aren't that mobile and can't take many hits, but with them, it's enough to be the first to shoot to come out on top in most engagements. Now for something completely different. Take a look at the rather small but deadly Dassault tracked SPAHE with an open crew top. Its 20mm gun isn't just for aerial targets. If you're using an AP belt, you can spoil the day for many ground vehicles as well. The third era is more of the same good
Oh my
thing.
god, it was killed me.
Guns are punchier, and having penetrated armor, shells make even shorter work of enemy vehicles. Let's first discuss the Nato, a true Japanese glass cannon. It's slow, takes ages to turn, and its crew can be taken out by trivial machine gun fire. But, and that's a big but, it's armed with one of the scariest guns at its BR, and its APHE shells pierce 110mm of armor at 1 kilometer range.
Holy shit.
A bit higher you can find the Chito and the Chito Late and the premium Chi-Lu 2. In many respects, they play a lot like the BZ-4, variants from the German tech tree. A powerful and precise cannon, a good APHE shell with excellent after-penetration effect, and decent mobility. A tank like that is a well-balanced pick that will allow for some enjoyable games at rank 3. The Chi-Ri-2 is the first and only Japanese vehicle in possession of a drum autoloader of some sorts. You only get to make 2 successive shots with noticeably shorter reload time in between them. If you keep firing, the next rounds will be loaded the usual slow way. But make a short break and you will soon get your 2-round capacity back. What's interesting is that the Chi-Ri-2 is also outfitted with a secondary gun. It's not particularly powerful, but can come in handy when playing mind games with your opponents. For example, use it to take a shot at the corner of the house. The enemy might peek or even rush out, thinking that you're on a reload. Apart from Japanese designs, there is also the premium heavy tank number 6, or to put it simply, a familiar Tiger brought from Germany during the war. And, as a part of the regular tree, a couple of other familiar armor faces, the American Chaffee and Sherman tanks, which both saw service in post-war Japan. The fourth rank introduces the well-protected vehicles in the tree, the Hori prototype and the Hori production. These 2 SPGs are considered to be among the best in the game, and rightfully so. They have it all. excellent survivability, amazing guns, and surprisingly high mobility. These tank destroyers boast a max speed of up to 40 kph in RB and 44 kph in RK. Another big thing is that many fourth-era vehicles now carry American guns. The ST-A1 and the ST-A2 both come equipped with a cannon typically found on the M46 Phantom tank. Can fire all associated rounds, including the well-known M82 shot and a heat round that easily penetrates the UFP of a King Tiger. And that's at BR 6.3. Another example is the 106mm recoilless gun that is usually found on the American M50, which is a rank 5 vehicle, by the way. The Japanese installed this gun on the Type 60 SPRG and did a great job doing that, enabling the Type 60 to have an impressive 20 degree of gun depression, which allows you to shoot at your enemies from many uncommon positions. Welcome to the 5th rank, the home of the first Japanese MBT, the STB-1. It's highly mobile, utilizes hydropneumatic suspension, has a powerful gun with a stabilizer, and has access to a wide array of different rounds. This is a versatile tank, allowing for various offensive and defensive options, and capable of laying precision fire on the move. Every other vehicle at this rank is also kind of unique, though. Take a look at the Type 75, for example. It's a multiple rocket launcher carrying 30 rockets, each with more than 6 kilos of explosive matter. Or the Type 60 ATM tank destroyer. It has no armor to speak of, and the 6th slowest ATGMs in the game. As a result, it struggles in many battle situations, but might be the best way to learn how to control ATGMs due to their low speed. Finally, we're at the top, the 6th rank. There are 4 vehicles waiting for you here. First, it's the production variant of the STB, which is now called the Type 74. The name isn't the only thing that changed. Most notably, the tank also gained access to the APFSDS with a decent penetration rate, and its gun takes almost 2 fewer seconds to reload. Next to it is the Type 89 IFV. It's a nimble vehicle armed with a deadly autocannon and powerful 152mm ATGMs. These ones aren't just for training purposes anymore. They obliterate. Then there's the Type 87, an excellent high-tier SPAAG outfitted with a radar system and 2 quick-firing Oerlikon KDA cannons. Oh, yeah. The last vehicle of the tree is the majestic Type 90, a classic design with good mobility, great firepower, and a high
Greetings, Fred. See you wait till darn recording again.
Of course it was. It's been calling all night. Just unplug the phone.
Greetings, Fred. Hey,
I told you to unplug the phone.
but it could be my mother. Howdy, Fred.
Shoot! That is it, Dad. If you don't unplug that phone right now, you're sleeping on the lawn.
Will you two shut up? People are trying to sleep. Will you? Hey,
I told you to unplug the phone.
but it could be my mother. Howdy, Fred.
Shoot! That is it, Dad. If you don't unplug that phone right now, you're sleeping on the lawn.
Will you two shut up? People are trying to sleep.
Hey, this is auto dialer.
Lisa, cops are chasing me. I need a place to hide.
Lisa's window is the next one.
Dad, did you plug that phone back in?
Shut up!
but I wasn't even there, honest. Skinner's just out to get me.
So unfair.
Uh-oh.
Meet me at the back door.
Aha! I had a feeling we'd find you here.
Gee, no! What'd you do that?
Well, that thing's been driving the whole town nuts. Got me out of the van 7 times. 7.
Hey, who shut the auto dialer? The Sergeant's auto dialer.
See you in court, Simpson. Oh, and bring that evidence with you. Otherwise, I got no case. You go scot-free, you know.
Gee, what about those coleslaw pops?
Well, I can't be everywhere at once, Lou, now can I? You know, in most cities, the chief of police doesn't even go out on calls like these.
Yeah, we know, Chief. Well, we appreciate it. Count our blessings every day. Very, very much.
You know, my sense is places in corner public needs. Two people in corner public needs.
Daddy, I'm stealing! I'm stealing!
That's my little dude. Yeah, team, baby. You live. You don't.
Oh, why how he fucking sneak past? Right, guys are on scene. Fuck off, man. Are you fucking serious? Why? Fuck. God damn it. Yes. Yes. Oh, I love my babies a bit too much, my baby.
Mindy, because of our uncontrollable attraction, I think we should avoid each other from now on.
Max, what I did because of alcohol and anger.
I am tired of these jokes about my giant hand. The first such incident occurred in 1956 when
And anger.
I am tired of these jokes about my giant hand. The first such in
That's racist. If your Canadian is 6 when
incident occurred in 1956 when Mindy. Oh, I'm sweating like Roger.
No. I miss you, Gene.
A truest civilization would be to find evidence for life away from Earth. And moreover, that evidence comes in the form of signals from an extraterrestrial civilization. That would be even more educational for us. Because we could then not only realize that we are not alone, but also learn from them. They are a billion years more advanced than we are. Then their technology and science are far more sophisticated, and so we can make a leap in our understanding of technology and science by listening to them, by seeing what they're doing. So it might feel like cheating in an exam where we get answers to questions that we haven't figured out ourselves. Still, it will be very rewarding to learn from more advanced civilization.
Now you have done work in addition to radio signals. You've done work in such things as biosignatures and technosignatures that are independent of radio. Can you tell us about those?
Yes. So, in fact, I'm actually involved right now in writing textbooks on the search for both primitive and intelligent life away from Earth, because I believe that's the most exciting frontier that awaits us in science, and it will have dramatic implications for our understanding of our place in the universe and the deep cultural effects on our society if we ever find evidence of this type. What I worked on are ideas that indeed go beyond the traditional way of moving to radio signals. One of them had to do with searching for artificial light. So when we look in the solar system, for example, objects like asteroids reflect sunlight, and they get dimmer as we move far away, as the inverse of the distance to the fourth power, simply because the amount of light they intercept goes like 1 over distance squared away from the sun, and then as they go farther from us, they get dimmer because of the inverse square law. So altogether, it's 1 over distance to the fourth. But if an object produces its own artificial light, for example, if there is a city on some object, or if there is a spacecraft going through space, then there would be a dependence of just 1 over distance squared as to how the object gets dimmer as it moves away or approaches us. And so there is a simple way of telling, measure the distance. There is a simple way of telling, when it's producing its artificial light. And surprisingly, nobody really tested whether all the objects in the solar system you see, many of which are away in the Kuiper belt, for example, whether they follow one law or
It was just right there on my ass.
no! Check for artificial lights. Another one had to do with industrial pollution. So people are thinking about searching for oxygen
No, I didn't do
other
shit.
biomarkers as signatures of life, primitive life, because you know that if life did not exist on Earth, then within 1 million years, all the oxygen in the atmosphere would have been depleted. It's a very reactive molecule. And so oxygen is regarded in combination with methane as a good biomarker, a signature of primitive life. But since we are contaminating our atmosphere with pollutants, I thought it might be interesting to look for industrial pollution in the atmospheres of other planets. And that can be done with the same telescopes that are searching for signatures of oxygen. And we found that in the future, let's say a decade from now, if there is a planet with pollution that is about 10 to 100 times larger than our civilization produced on Earth, then it might be potentially detectable with some significant effort, but it could be potentially detectable. Then another interesting direction that I explored had to do with artifacts on the surface of planets. So, for example, Proxima b, this planet next to Proxima Centauri, the nearest star to us, that planet is really long and shows the star the same face at all time. So one side is prominent day side where there is a lot of illumination and it's hot, and the other side is the prominent night side, which is cold. And if a civilization occupies the surface of such a planet, it probably would light
Please kill one of their crew.
from the permanent day side to the permanent night side and produce electricity in the process. So one way to find out about that is what photovoltaic cells they might put on the day side. They might moderate photovoltaic cells, solar cells, to collect the light and then transfer the sun.
This is one between them.
And it should be relatively straightforward to detect
I'm like,
these effects
wow.
by monitoring the light curve of the planet. So as the planet moves around the star, it reflects the light from the star if there's nothing artificial going on there. And without even resolving the planet, you can monitor how the combined system of the star plus the planet changes its flux. So when the planet goes on the other side, it's hidden from us, but once it exits from the shadow of the star, then it reflects, it acts as a mirror, so we see more light. Sort of like the phases of the moon. And when it's sideways, we see only half of the one hemisphere being illuminated. And so the light, the combined light changes with time, but if there is some artificial redistribution of light or heat, we could tell that it exists from the combined light. And that's a simple way of telling. So that's in terms of photovoltaic cells or redistribution of heat or light. There are also structures that one could look for around stars, megastructures that could reveal the existence of an advanced civilization. And by the way, the interesting thing about those and also about photovoltaic cells is that they could outlive the civilization. If a civilization destroys itself through a nuclear war, for example, we might still find the artifacts that they created. It would look like a graveyard of a civilization. And we would see that there is no evidence for life there, but we could still detect artifacts that could not be produced naturally.
How long would such a thing last? How long would you see these artifacts in orbit around the star in the light curve? Would it be millions of years or billions of years?
Well, eventually what will happen, either the surface will be covered due to dust or rocks due to impact of asteroids, or there would be some plate tectonics that reshuffles the surface. And the estimates are that it could last for at least 10 to the 5 years, 100,000 years, which could be much longer than civilization was. I mean, if you look at world politics, we had nuclear weapons for perhaps
drag dust grains out of the aerogel and analyze it. But it turns out to be this spectacular insulator.
So aerogel is also ridiculously light, right?
Yes.
So you can save a lot of weight simply by using that as an insulation as opposed to, I don't know, fiberglass or something.
Yeah, we love it. Yeah, it's tremendously versatile.
Now there's another aspect to this mission that's absolutely amazing. Ingenuity.
Yeah.
We are going to have a little tiny helicopter operating on Mars. Now, this is a technology demonstration, fundamentally.
It is.
I realize that. But so was, long ago, Sojourner, little tiny rover, just showing that we could have rovers on Mars, and look what we have now. So maybe in the future, much greater things will come from what we learned from Ingenuity. What is Ingenuity going to do?
So you're right. Ingenuity is a technology demonstration. It's the first time we'll ever attempt flying anything on its own mobility in an atmosphere of another planet. It's a pretty spectacular concept, and if it works, indeed, as you say, it will open up an enormous number of doors. Ingenuity is bolted to the bottom belly pan of Perseverance, and after Perseverance lands, it will drop Ingenuity on the ground, and then drive away, going probably 50, 75 meters away, and then command Ingenuity to turn on. Now, Ingenuity, you can imagine a little box, like a cell of a CubeSat, maybe 5 or 6 inches by 5 or 6 inches by 5 or 6 inches, nice little square box. in that box is battery and a camera capability with radio capability to then take data, store it, and then send it back to the rover. Okay, send it back to Percy. And, of course, run these two blades, and they're long blades, they're about 4 feet in length, that are connected like an X, and they counter-rotate. And because of that counter-rotation, they don't need a tail blade. And so we're going to run that at an enormous RPM, revolutions per minute. And then once we give it the command to turn on, we're going to perform a series of maneuvers. The first one is a simple one. It's go up several feet, 5 feet or so, and hover, and then sit down. Very simple, just rise and come down. And once it does that, then it's going to telemetry all the information, all the images that it took back to the rover, and then the rover will take that and send it back to the orbiter. We have orbiters that are going around Mars, and then from those orbiters that are really they're going to send that back to Earth. That's how we communicate.
We just did it.
And in that way, we don't have Percy, or Curiosity for that matter, driving with a big trailer and a big dish behind it, and pulling the trailer, all right? And so that we have a dish that we can send anything back to Earth. We use the capability of our orbiters to be the relay. So then we'll charge up the battery, while we're analyzing the data back at the ranch, back at JPL, and take a look at it, and then we'll decide, okay, we're ready for test 2. So test 2 will be, once again, we're going to pick it up, but then we're going to translate. We're going to fly parallel to the surface for maybe 10 meters or so. And while we do that, it's going to be taking data and images, and then we're going to set it down. So it'll form this U shape, all right?
Shooting at?
And then we'll send that back through the orbiters, as I mentioned before, analyze it. And then the next day, we'll charge it up, and we're ready to go. The next thing is indeed, we're going to now take off. All that is working, all the fundamentals are ready to go. We're now going to put it through even more strenuous tests. So we're going to then fly up, go through, then at a particular height, maybe 10 feet or so, we're going to take off. And we're going to go 50 meters, maybe more, and then come back, and then land exactly in the same place that we took off. And so those are a series of tests that we're going to perform. At the end of those tests, and there are a couple others that are similar to that, at the end of those tests, we're then ready to put the helicopter into service. Now, okay, so what kind of service are we talking about? Well, one of the toughest things to do about driving rovers on Mars is to chart its path. Okay, there's no route on Mars, obviously, but indeed, there are valleys, there's hills, there's sand traps. That means there's craters that have occurred for which the dust has flowed millions of years, perhaps, and filled in the crater. We can't even see that it would collapse into it if we drove into it. This is what actually happened on the And so consequently, I'm sorry, Spirit. So consequently, then we want to be able to get high-resolution images in a direction that we expect the Perseverance to go. And so Ingenuity could provide that for us. And that's what we'd like for it to do. Once we do that, then we know this kind of technology has a bright future on Mars. I can imagine a future for which we would have a series of helicopters, much more capable, much larger, landing. We could drop them off in certain areas, and then also have a relay station for which then these helicopters can go, enormous distances, and then radio back information, which then can come back. Now, one of the features that we have on Mars is
Wait, awesome. Holy shit.
Reoccurring slope lineage.
Wow.
These are regions on the
Wow.
sides of craters for which
Wow.
we believe during certain times
Wow.
of the year, water will flow down.
That was
But the pressure's so low,
Thunder Show.
water doesn't
Down,
stay liquid for
but
a
not
very long
out.
time unless it's really briny.